What if the move that wakes this whole franchise up is not a draft pick, not a speech, not another offseason promise, but the moment Jerry Jones looks at the league, looks at that defense, looks at Myles Garrett and says, "That's the one." Ha, Cowboys Nation, can you imagine the noise if that ever happened? Can you feel how fast the entire energy around this team would change? Because this is not just some random rumor floating around for clicks. No. This one hits different. This one makes Cowboys fans stop scrolling, lean in, and picture what Dallas could become if the biggest pass-rushing monster in football ever became a real target. And yeah, I know what the Browns are saying right now. They're saying they are not trading him. They're saying that is not the plan. But come on now, when contract language changes, when option money gets pushed back, when people around the league start whispering about flexibility, when a front office starts thinking years ahead, you better believe fans are going to connect the dots. And why shouldn't they? This is Myles Garrett we're talking about. 23 sacks, Defensive Player of the Year, the kind of dude who wrecks protections, destroys game plans, and makes offensive coordinators lose sleep all week long. That is not a normal player. That is a franchise-altering presence. And if there is one team that should be dreaming big about a player like that, it is Dallas. Why? Because the Cowboys already know exactly what the problem was. The offense had enough juice to win games. Dak Prescott still gives this team leadership, command, and fight. CeeDee Lamb is still the kind of weapon that changes coverage and opens the whole field. But the defense? Oh man. That unit put this team in way too many holes, gave up way too many points, and forced Dallas to play uphill far too often. That is why this offseason matters so much, because the Cowboys are not acting like everything is fine. They are rebuilding that side of the ball with purpose. Rashawn Gary is here, Jalen Thompson is here, PJ Locke is here, Kobe Durant is here. Christian Parker is putting his stamp on this defense and talking about the two things that matter most, stopping the run and affecting the quarterback. Read that again, Cowboys Nation, affecting the quarterback. And now tell me, what happens if you add the most feared quarterback hunter in football to that mission? Tell me what happens if this front goes from trying to improve to trying to terrorize. That is when this whole conversation shifts. That is when the NFC East starts shaking a little bit. That is when Dallas stops looking like a team patching holes and starts looking like a team building violence into its identity. And that is why I love this subject so much, because even if Myles Garrett never leaves Cleveland, this conversation still reveals something important. Dallas is finally acting like a team that understands what it needs. The Cowboys know the defense has to become the difference, not the excuse. They know the roster still needs more at linebacker. They know the draft still matters. They know Brian Schottenheimer has 2 first-round picks and a chance to keep stacking real football players onto this roster. But if the door ever cracks open, if the Browns ever blink, if the noise around Garrett gets louder later in the offseason, Jerry cannot hesitate. He cannot play it safe. He cannot think small, because this is the exact kind of swing that can change the emotional temperature of an entire season before week 1 even gets here. And that is why Cowboys fans should be fired up right now. Not because a trade is done, not because anything is guaranteed, but because Dallas is building the kind of defensive makeover that makes a Myles Garrett dream actually make sense. And if that dream ever gets real, ooh baby, the whole division is gonna feel it. So now I want to hear you loud in the comments, Cowboys Nation. If the chance ever comes, would you go all in for Myles Garrett? Or do you believe Dallas can finish this defensive rebuild through the draft and the pieces already in the building? Drop your thoughts below, hit like, and subscribe.